Welcome to part 5 of this Blender tutorial series where we're creating this Tesla Cybertruck in Blender. If you haven't seen the previous parts, then you can check out the tutorial playlist linked in the video description. So in this part, we're going to be modeling a bunch of different objects inside the Cybertruck, like the cup holders and the seats, and a basic ground and some walls. And then one more thing before we start this part, I wanted to let you know about my furniture and home asset pack for Blender. In this furniture and home 3D model asset pack, you will get 250 furniture and home Blender 3D models, pre-set up for Blender's asset browser and ready to add to your projects. Quickly fill in your 3D scenes just by dragging the models from the asset browser into your 3D scenes. The models have been split up into 5 different categories in the asset browser. The categories include office assets, living room assets, kitchen assets, dining room assets, and a combined bedroom and bathroom assets. There's also a free demo available that you can try out before purchasing. Check out the product with the links in the description, and you can also find the full product video with the link in the description. So let's get started off. Now before we actually do the interior, what I want to do is actually model like a little square piece, which is going to be right in here. So because you can kind of see right in here, there's like a giant gap. So I actually want to model a little piece right in there. So let's center the 3D cursor and I'll go to the add menu and I'll add a cube. Now let's go into edit mode and I'll scale the cube down. And we want to make it a bit smaller than the wheels, make it a bit smaller. And I want to go back to object mode and then bring it forward. And in edit mode, let's scale it down on the Z axis. Let's go to side view and we're going to go into wireframe and we're going to select the bottom and just bring it up right about there. So you can see there's kind of that bottom plate there. So it's above that bottom plate. But then if I like select the top, let's bring the top down and make it as far down as we can. And also we'll select this side and bring it back. So if I just box select the vertices here, I'll hit Control B for a bevel. I'll scroll my mouse wheel so there's only one cut in the bevel and then box select the bottom of the bevel and bring it down. And then select this side. We're going to add a bevel to it as well and select this and bring it down. Also, we could maybe select the whole thing and bring it forward a little bit. So we're just modeling a basic object in there so that if you can kind of see through the wheels, you can't actually see all the way to the very end of the Cybertruck because it kind of makes it look like the wheels are kind of floating or they're not connected. And then right down here as well. So just modeling a very basic object there. So let's now duplicate this and put this on the other side. So we're just going to put it right about there. And then if we need to make it a little bit longer, we can. So just move that like that. It's a bit longer. All right, that is pretty good. And if we open up the outliner, it looks like we have some objects here which need to be moved into the main Cybertruck collection. So I now want to model a basic floor. So I'm going to select the windows and just hit H to hide them. And I'm just going to hide the windows so we can kind of see inside the Cybertruck. Let's center the 3D cursor with Shift C, and then we'll go to the add menu and add a plane. We'll go into edit mode and scale the plane down and bring it over to the side. And then just like the other objects, we're going to add a mirror modifier to mirror it over to the other side. And we'll turn on clipping, then bring it into the mirror. All right, and then back in object mode, we're going to bring it down. Just bring it down like that. We'll go back into edit mode and I'm going to move it out and just bring it out just as far so that it's at the very end, but not quite all the way through, so we can't see it from the outside. And then we're also going to scale it up. Let's just select the front. We're going to bring the front forward just like that, and then select the back and bring it back there. So just like that. But I want to make sure that you can't see it from the outside. So you can kind of see there, I can see just a little bit. So I'm going to bring it back a little bit on the y-axis. All right, we'll go to the front here, kind of zoom in, and just make sure that that is invisible too. So now we just have a basic floor. Now I also want to add another plane here as kind of a backdrop in the back here, because we don't actually want to be able to see inside the truck bed. So we'll go to edit mode and we're going to go to the edge select and we'll select this edge. And we'll duplicate the edge and move it up and move it over, move it in here, and then we'll hit P and separate into its own object. So we'll now select the object, and in object mode, we can move it over and move it right up here just so that the origin point is kind of in the center of where it's going to be. And I'll go into edit mode and let's bring the entire thing forward a bit, and I'll bring it up, and then we can extrude it down and just kind of fill the back part. So I now want to add some loop cuts here. So we'll add some loop cuts. We'll go to the vertex select the vertices, just kind of move that over there so it's towards the end. Add another loop cut right there and drag this one forward or drag it over to the side. And we just want to kind of fill this area. So add another one there. We can add another loop cut here and just drag that over, maybe bring it up a little bit. All right, just like that. So I'm just doing some basic modeling. It doesn't need to be perfect, but I definitely don't want to be able to see it through here. So make sure that they aren't going through the main body. Let's go up to the top, go into edit mode. We're going to add another loop cut right here, and we're going to drag this over like that. We'll select this and drag it back. And then at the very top here, we're just going to bring this up just as high as we can. All right, so there is a basic backdrop object. So back in edit mode, I'm going to add another loop cut. Let's drag this loop cut down here. And then what we're going to do is select all of these vertices here on the end. And we're going to extrude it and bring it over. Let's bring it all the way over to the very end here. So right about right there. And then let's go to top view. We'll go to wireframe. And I'm going to move it over. Let's just move it over here so we can't see it from the outside. And it's actually way too far out because you can see it through the wheel here. So we just want to drag it back so it's not that far. And then if we select the top vertices, let's bring these down, just bring them right in there. Let's navigate down here. All right, that's good. So we just want to stick it right about there. And then we are going to have like a dashboard here, but just in case the dashboard doesn't cover it all, we'll select these vertices and extrude this out, extrude out there. Let's select this vertex and bring it up on the z-axis like that. All right, and this we can bring down. And that's probably going to be far enough. We can adjust it later if we need to. Maybe I'll just bring that forward like that. So now you can see we have just a basic wall. Of course, if you're doing interior rendering of the Cybertruck, this would not look good because you can kind of see some things through it, but I'm not focusing on that. I just want to make it look okay from the outside. I do think I want to go to the face select and select all of these faces on the side, and I do want to bring them in just a little bit because I don't want them to go through those little spots there, because if they're coming through, then you would be able to see them through these little crevices. So let's bring it back just a little bit. All right, so just a basic wall for the inside. And we're just going to add like a basic kind of grayish material so that it won't look metallic, because the outside of the Cybertruck, that is going to be metallic. Let's now model the dashboard. So I'm going to hide these window objects again, just so I can see through it. We'll center the 3D cursor and I'm going to add a plane. Let's bring the plane over to the front, and in edit mode, I'm going to rotate everything on the X by 90 degrees. We'll go to side view and I'll go to wireframe and I will scale it down, and then back in object mode, I'll bring it down here. And in edit mode, I'm going to move it over. We'll stick it right there. We'll select the top vertices in edit mode and we're going to bring it up a bit. And then we're going to extrude it and just extrude it all the way around. So extrude it up and around, just like that, up and around. I think I want to select the entire thing and move it down a little bit. All right, maybe rotate these over like this. And then we will just extrude this all the way over here. We're going to have a really long dashboard and it will go to the very end. Let's go a little bit farther, and then we'll extrude a little bit, and then have it go up here. So it's going to go straight up like that. So if I go back to solid view, you can see there's the shape of the dashboard, and I'm going to scale it all the way up like this, scale it just as long as it needs to be, pretty much covering everything. There might be like a little crack here, but again, you're not really going to see that. And for this tutorial, we're not focusing on like a super realistic interior. So let's also select this edge. So go to the edge select this edge and scale it in a bit. And then I think we need to select everything and recalculate the normals. After you use the recalculate normals button, it's right behind me. So after you hit shift and to recalculate the normals, if it doesn't flip correctly, you can click on the inside button. And that looks correct now because the shading looks a bit better. Now, if I go down here to kind of the bottom where the wheel is, we can actually see that dashboard piece. So I'm going to add a loop cut, drag the loop cut down. And then if we go to the edge select, and we're just going to select that very bottom edge there, let's bring this up, and then we're going to scale it in. So we'll scale it along the x-axis and just bring it in a little bit like that, because we don't want to be able to see the dashboard on the outside at all. All right, that's looking good. Now we'll select the dashboard. We'll hit Control 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier and shade it smooth. And we now want to sharpen up the edges. So in edit mode, we're going to add a loop cut, and we'll drag this loop cut just really close, but not fully touching the other side. We'll add another loop cut, and we'll edge slide this loop cut again really close over to this side. Then we'll add another loop cut here in the very back of the dashboard right there, and then we'll add another loop cut here. Let's add a loop cut here to sharpen this up right here, and then add another loop cut to the very bottom. All right, let's go to the bottom and make sure we can't see that. So there is the basic dashboard. And if you wanted to, you could of course like open this area up. You could like extrude this back and have an area for, you know, where the feet would be. You could even model the pedals and things if you wanted to. But again, the more and more details that I add are just going to make the tutorial really long. It's already a pretty long tutorial series, and I just want to focus on getting the main result. So in your own time, you can definitely model more details if you want to. So we're now going to be making the steering wheel. So I'll unhide all the other objects, and then we want to click on the check marks there just to hide all the objects, and we also want to hide the main references, but the other references, we're going to show this because we want to add in the steering wheel reference. So we'll go to front view, and this reference here, if we just open it up, we just want to make these selectable, and let's just drag this down so it's out of the way. We'll just drag it way down here. And now we want to add in the steering wheel reference. So from the reference image pack, you can get this for free on my Gumroad or Patreon, or you'll also get it if you purchase the project files. So we're just going to drag and drop in this image from front view, and I'm going to hit Alt-G to clear the location. Let's go to the add menu and we're going to add a plane. And in edit mode, we're going to select everything and rotate the plane on the x-axis by 90 degrees. And we'll scale it down. So we're going to scale it along this object here. So basically make it the correct size for this object. So bring this down, scale this down a bit, select the top, and then scale it up a little bit. And we're not going to worry about the bevels for now. We're just going to scale it to the shape of the object. Let's go to side view. We're going to select everything, and actually we'll just select this tire and move it down here out of the way. So back in edit mode, we're going to select everything. So we'll select the main object again, go back to side view and go to edit mode. We're going to extrude it out, maybe just about this far. We can adjust that later. Let's go to front view, and we're now going to scale this down and move it up and just fit it to the reference. Let's go back to side view, and I'm going to select the back and we'll bring it forward, and then we're going to extrude it back a bit like that. All right, so that is the basic shape of it. So now what I want to do is select this loop right here, and we want to add a bevel. Before we do that though, we can add a mirror modifier to this so we don't have to do both sides manually. So we're going to add a loop cut right there. In wireframe, we're going to delete half of it, and then we can add a mirror modifier and turn clipping on. So now if we select this loop here, we'll add a bevel. Let's actually go to front view when we do this. So we'll go into wireframe and we'll add a bevel and just compare it to the reference, and we'll just make a nice cut there like that. And then we'll select this loop here and add another bevel, just like that. So now if we select everything here kind of in the middle, we're going to bring this in, kind of bring it down. So now we're going to inset the face, but after we inset the face, we're going to hit B to toggle the boundary so it connects to the mirror. And we'll just bring it in a little bit, then we'll inset it again, make it a little bit smaller. So now what we're going to do is just go to the face select this loop of faces there. We're going to zoom into the faces. Let's actually navigate over here to the side and then extrude it back in just to make kind of a little lip there. All right, like that. And then in edit mode, we're going to go to the edge select or the vertex select. We're going to select this loop of vertices, and we're going to add a bevel to this as well. And you can scroll your mouse wheel to change the amount of cuts just like that. Then we're going to add a subdivision surface modifier, and we're going to make the levels and viewport renderer just set to 1 on the subdivision, and then we're going to shade it smooth. And back in edit mode, we're going to go to the face select, we're going to select this face, and we're going to inset this face just one more time so it's a little bit more flat. And then if we go here to the back, we're going to inset this face, just inset it like that, and then we're going to add a loop cut right there. And then finally, just to sharpen up a few things, because you can see there's a bit of stretching here, let's add another modifier, and we're going to add the weighted normal modifier. And then if we select this face, let's select the back face, and we'll inset it one more time just to make it nice and sharp there. And I think I will just add one more loop cut, so Control R for another loop cut and drag another loop cut right there. So let's center the 3D cursor, and we're going to add another object, so we'll add another cube. Let's go to front view, we'll go to wireframe. In edit mode, we're going to scale it down. Let's move it up here, and then just like all the other objects, we're going to add a mirror modifier, and we're going to move it over to the other side. We'll turn on clipping so it merges with the mirror. Let's bring this out like that, scale it down, and then we want to go here to that face select. We'll select the inner face and delete the faces because we don't want that face in the center. We're going to go to the vertex select. We'll select the vertices here, and we're going to extrude this and rotate it, and extrude it and rotate it, and just start to move it all the way down. And we're going to ignore this spot for now because we can model that later. Although we can just kind of bring it over a little bit to make it a little bit wider, and then extrude this down. Extrude it down like this. Okay. Extrude it down, rotate it. And we'll just keep on doing that until we're back to the very center. Now, as for the side here, what we're going to do is just box select all of these here, and we're going to extrude it, but then scale it way down on the Z-axis, and also scale it down on the X-axis. And we're just going to kind of move it up here, and then we're going to add a loop cut right there. And let's select this side of the loop cut, bring it in. And we'll select this side of the loop cut and bring it in there. And we want to rotate this and kind of rotate it like that. We'll add another loop cut here. Let's bring these over, bring this over. And so it's pretty simple modeling, just kind of modeling it to the shape of the reference, move it right there. So let's hit Control 2 to add a subdivision surface with 2 levels, and we'll just shade it smooth. So now back in edit mode, we're going to add a loop cut right here just to kind of sharpen up this spot there. So it looks like it's going to connect to the other piece. And then on the inside here, I want to sharpen this up. So we'll add a loop cut right there, just one loop cut. So it kind of sharpens that up. So it's a little bit more square shape. Now right down here, it looks like we have another face here. So if we go to the face select, we want to select this face and just delete the faces. And then right on the inside, I want to sharpen it up a little bit. So we're going to add a loop cut right there. Just leave it in the center so it kind of sharpens that up. And then if we go to the side again or go to the front, we'll go to wireframe. You can see right here, this is a little bit sharp. So if we just select these vertices, we'll just edge slide them and we'll edge slide them just so it looks a little bit more smooth. That looks a lot better. So back in object mode, we're going to send to the 3D cursor and we're going to add another cube. In edit mode, we'll scale the cube down, bring it over, and we're going to add a mirror modifier just like the other objects, and we're going to model this piece here. So we'll go to wireframe, it will bring this up, and we'll select this, move it over here to fit the reference, and move this over, and move this up just a little bit. We're going to add a loop cut right here and drag the loop down, double tap G to edge slide, bring that down. So now if we just select this vertex, or these vertices, the front and the back ones, we'll move them forward. All right, and move that back, just like that. And then if we go to the side, definitely is too long. So we want to scale it down so it's not quite that big. So scale it down, something like that. Now if we go to the edge select and select this edge, I want to edge slide it and just edge slide it right back here. So it's kind of like this. And then if we select everything, we're going to merge by distance. Now you can see right here, there's this open spot here. So I'm going to select this piece, go into edit mode, and we want to select these vertices and edge slide them in, select these vertices and edge slide it up. And we can like edge slide it down and then just kind of like move it up here. So you don't have that spot there. Maybe select these and just drag this up so it is more level there and connects with that side bit. And then if we select the other object again, in wireframe, we're just going to drag this over a little bit so it just goes into there, so it kind of connects. Now for this object, we're going to add the bevel modifier. Let's turn the amount way down and we'll turn the segments up to 2. We'll shade it smooth. And then, just like the other objects, we're going to add a weight to normal to sharpen those flat faces, because the shading definitely looks nicer with the weight to normal. Now, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but the Cybertruck does have like a few buttons and things right along here. What I'm going to do is just model like one button here and one button here. I'm actually not sure if they're buttons. They almost look like little like scroll wheels, but I'm just going to be modeling those. So we'll center the 3D cursor, and I'm going to add a UV sphere. And in edit mode, I'll bring the sphere over, scale it down, and we can rotate it. We'll rotate it on the Y by 90 degrees. And then we're going to add a mirror modifier to this object. Let's go to front view. Let's go to wireframe. I'll scale it down. I'm just going to stick it right here. And of course, in your own time, if you want to, you can, look at reference images of the real steering wheels on the Cybertrucks, and you can model a bunch more tiny little details. But in the final render, I'm not even going to be able to see it because I'm just rendering from the outside. But I will just model a few details. So let's go to front view, go to wireframe, and I'm going to select that loop and then select that loop. And I will add a bevel to both of these loops. And I want to scroll my mouse wheel down so that there aren't any cuts inside. So just like that. And now I'm going to extrude, escape, and then you can use Alt S to scale along the normals like that. We're then going to add a subdivision surface modifier, and we're just going to set it to 1 level, and we'll just shade it smooth. And back in edit mode, we can just add like a few loop cuts just to sharpen up the edges. So add a loop cut right there and there. And also we'll add another loop cut right over there. And then one more right over there. So it's pretty sharp there. All right, and maybe what I'll do in edit mode is just scale it up a little bit so it's a little bit thicker. So now what I want to do is model kind of the back part of the steering wheel where it kind of connects to the dashboard. So I'm going to go into edit mode of this object, and I'm going to go to the face select, and I'll select these faces, and I'll duplicate them and separate them into their own object. Now let's drag it back here, and then back in edit mode, I'm going to select these faces and extrude it in, and let's turn on the clipping so it merges with the mirror, and we'll stick it in there. Let's hit Control 1 to go to back view, and we'll go to wireframe. I'm going to box select this, kind of bring it in. Let's box select this, also bring this in, because we actually want it to be a little bit smaller from the other objects. So we'll kind of bring it in and down. So you can see now that object we're making is a little bit smaller than the other objects. And we're going to box select these two vertices, and we're going to extrude it down and kind of bring it in like that. So you can kind of see there's the shape that we're getting. And then let's extrude it back so it has a lot more thickness and kind of scale it down a bit like that. And then in edit mode, we're also going to bring it forward and stick it into the other objects. Now, what I'm going to do is go to the modifiers and we're going to delete the bevel and delete the weighted normal. And instead I'll hit Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface and shade it smooth. And then let's isolate the object by hitting the /. We'll go into edit mode and I'm going to go to the face select and select these faces and delete the faces, and select these faces and delete the faces. We're now going to add some loop cuts. So I'll add a loop cut down here and right here to sharpen that up. And let's add some more loop cuts right there to sharpen those up. And we're just going to sharpen up pretty much all the angles because they do want to be a little bit sharp but not super sharp. So I'm just going to continue adding loop cuts all around these angles here like that. Let's hit the / to go out of local view. All right, so there is the back piece. And now what I want to do is make one more object, which is going to kind of rotate down. So in edit mode, I'm going to duplicate these loops here and separate them into their own object. And I'll select the new object and go into edit mode and I'll scale it up. Let's bring it out and kind of scale it up so it's larger. And then what I want to do is delete some of these extra vertices here. So I'll select these vertices. So maybe like that one and this one. And I will dissolve the vertices. We'll select these two, dissolve vertices, and this one, dissolve vertices. And we're just going to delete some of these that we added. So now if we select the entire thing, we can extrude it out, and you can see it's going to be a bit more round. So we'll go to side view, and I'm going to rotate this, kind of scale it down, and extrude it and rotate it. We're going to have it go down and then over, just like that. We'll scale it down a bit more and then extrude it way back. All right, so now if I select the entire thing, maybe I'll scale it up and bring it forward just a little bit. And then if I select that entire loop here, let's fill the face and let's inset the face and let's hit B to turn on the boundary, inset that, and then we'll add a loop cut right here to sharpen that up. We'll add another loop cut to make it more sharp, and then we'll shade the object smooth. We could also just add a few loop cuts here. So we'll like add a loop cut here and maybe bring this down on the Z axis. All right, maybe add another loop cut there. We can select this and drag it out a little bit like that, so it's just a little bit more round. So now what I'm going to do is select all of the objects here that make up the steering wheel, but then I'm lastly going to select the main part which you'd grab. And I'll hit Control P, and we're going to set parent to object, keep transform. So now when we move this object, all the other objects move with it. All right, so we'll box select all of these objects here, and we're going to move them into a new collection. And we can just call this like steering wheel. You could also just add it into the main collection if you wanted to, but I thought I might as well just add it into a new collection so that we can toggle it on and off. And it's just easy to select. Now this empty here, I believe that is the reference. So let's rename this, and we're going to rename this to steering wheel ref. And then I'll just put this in other references. And then we can hide the other references and unhide the main reference. So let's also unhide the hubcaps, the wheels, and the Cybertruck so we can see everything again. And we're going to select this object and we can scale it down, and all the other objects are going to move along with it because it's parented. Now I also want to rotate this on the Z-axis by 180 degrees so it's rotated all the way around. And then we'll scale it down, we'll rotate it, we'll move it over. Let's scale it down and move it in. And we're just going to stick it right about there, and we can adjust this later if we want to. And we can change the size of it, but for now I'll stick it just right about there. And then let's go to top view, we'll go to wireframe, and I'm going to drag it over to this side. So let's just select the windows and hide them just to make sure it's where we want. Let's save the project again, we'll unhide everything. Now, if I just hide the front window here, I do want to create kind of a little screen there, which you can use to kind of control things like the heating and AC and things, different things on the truck. So let's turn on the 3D cursor, and I'm going to add a plane. We'll bring the plane over. Let's bring the plane up just so I can see it. And in edit mode, I'll scale it down. Let's squish it down a bit. And then I'll extrude it down to give it some thickness. Then what I want to do is go to the edge select, and I want to select the edges just on the very corners. So we're going to select all of these edges just like that on the 4 corners. We're going to add a bevel, and I'll scroll my mouse wheel just to give more cuts to the bevel. Like that. And then if I select everything, we'll recalculate the normals. Let's give it a little bit more thickness. So then we're going to add the same modifiers to this object. So we're going to add like the bevel modifier with segments of 2. We'll turn the amount down so it's pretty small. We're going to shade it smooth, and then we'll also add the weighted normal. All right, so pretty basic screen. So we'll bring the screen down. We'll scale it down and rotate it on the x-axis. Bring it down there. We're just going to stick it kind of in the center of the dashboard. So let's select all these other windows and just hide them again, just to get them out of the way. And I now want to create kind of a little center spot with some cup holders. So I'll go to the add menu and we're going to add a cube. In edit mode, I'll scale the cube down, we'll bring it forward, and it might be a little bit easier to model it outside of the Cybertruck. So for now, I'll just kind of bring it up here. And in edit mode, I'll go to top view and kind of scale it up so it's longer, scale it down, and then we can add a loop cut in the center, and we want to delete half of it. So delete the vertices, and then we're going to add a mirror modifier with clipping turned on. So let's go to side view and I'll go to wireframe. We're going to just bring it down a bit. Actually, we'll bring it up a bit, then we'll extrude it, and then we'll extrude down again. And then if we just box select this side, we'll just bring this in. So it kind of has like a shape where it kind of pops out and comes forward. Let's also select the top and bring the top down. And then we'll duplicate the entire top and bring it up slightly, and then extrude the entire thing up a little bit, just like that. So we have basically another piece which is on top. Now regarding the size of it, I think I want to select everything and make it a little bit longer, and then in object mode, maybe make it a little bit smaller, and then maybe also squish it down a little bit. And also if I go to wireframe and box select this piece, which kind of comes back, I think I want to bring it forward a little bit because it was a little bit too far. So just something like that, maybe select everything and bring it up a little bit so it's not quite as high up. So now let's add a loop cut. So I'm going to add a loop cut right here, kind of on the top of this piece right there. And then we'll go to the face select and select this face, and we'll inset the face. We'll inset it down like that and then kind of extrude it down. Now when I extrude this down, you can see it starts to go through this other face here. So we'll select this face and we're just going to delete the faces. And then we have another face here. So for this face, I'm going to add a loop cut right there. We'll go to the face select and select this face, and I'm going to inset this face just by a very small amount, like that, and then we'll delete the faces. So we just kind of have like a hole there inside the object. So now for this top face, we can drag it down quite a bit farther. And so we're going to have like the cup holders and things here. Let's go to the edge select, we'll select this edge and drag the edge just over like that. So now we're going to go to the face select and we'll select this face and we'll duplicate it and move it up, and let's bring it out and we'll bring it forward, and we're going to go to the edge select, we'll select this edge and bring it out. And then if we go to the face select and select this face here, so select that face, we will extrude it and we'll extrude it on the y-axis, and then we can scale it, and we're going to scale it on the y by 0 so that it is flat there on the back. Then if we select the entire thing, let's bring the entire thing down a bit, and we'll also bring it in. And then we will recalculate the normals. Then we'll also go to the edge select and select this edge, and we'll bring this over like that. And then maybe I'll go back to the face select and select this face and bring the face back a little bit so it's not too far. And then I also want to select this face and we're going to bring it back here. And then I'm going to duplicate the face and drag it over just slightly, and then we'll extrude this way over like that. So there's another piece. Now why I'm adding those little bits there, why I'm adding little pieces here and kind of separating them and not having them the same object, is because when we add a bevel, it'll kind of bevel this so it'll look like there's a little crease in there, and it will add more detail. So now let's model the cup holder so we can do it in this object. So we'll go to the face select and we'll select this face and duplicate it and move it up, and we're going to squish this face down. Let's bring it down here. And this is going to be where like some cup holders are going to be. We'll scale this up, and then we're going to extrude the entire thing down. And if we select the entire thing, we're going to recalculate the normals. So we'll select this piece, maybe scale it down a bit. And then I'm going to add some loop cuts. So I will add a loop cut here, and I'll scroll my mouse wheel till there are 4 cuts. Left click and right click, and then I can just scale the cuts down a little bit. Then I'm going to add some more loop cuts here. So we're actually just going to add 2 loop cuts. So left click and right click. So now if we go to the face select, we'll select this face and we'll scale this face up and scale it out. And we're going to make this about a square. So make it about a square like that. And I can now select all of these faces right here. So you can kind of see we're starting to get the shape of a cup holder, and we can just extrude this down. So extrude it almost all the way to the bottom, but not all the way. Now you can see that's a bit too long. And so these cup holders, I want them to be sort of like a roundish shape. They are going to be kind of boxy. That kind of fits the Cybertruck look where everything's really boxy. But I want to bring this over here like that so that this is more of like a circle shape. So then what we want to do is we want to select all of these faces right here. We'll select all those faces, and we can scale them. And what we can do is hit Shift Z, and Shift Z will exclude the Z axis. So we can make it a little bit bigger and then drag it back a little bit like that. And I also think I want to select the entire thing and scale the entire thing up a little bit and bring it over just because it's a little bit small. So we'll make that a little bit bigger. And then if we select these faces, we'll drag the faces back. And then also if we select all the cup holder piece, let's scale it down and move it in. All right, so there we go for the cup holders. So then what I also want to do is make like a little divider piece here. So I'm going to duplicate this face and bring it in like that. And then we can just extrude it forward like that. So we have a little divider piece. And I think we need to recalculate the normals again. All right, so we have like the cup holder. I believe in the Tesla Cybertruck, this here kind of opens up and you can just like store things in it. So this is going to be in the center between the seats. So we'll select this entire object and we're going to add the same objects that we've added before, or we're going to add the same modifiers. So we're going to add the bevel modifier. We'll turn the amount down. Now, for some reason, the amount is like really small on default. So let's select everything and we're going to merge by distance to make sure we don't have any overlapping vertices. And so to make the bevel a bit bigger, we're just going to turn the angle to 0, or we could also just change the angle limit to none. So if we turn the angle limit to none, now it's going to add a bevel to every single edge. And it looks like there's a small issue here, and that is that we deleted that little face on that top piece, on that square there. So if we go to the vertex select these vertices, let's extrude it, and then we're going to scale it in just slightly so that this spot here looks like it's coming in a little bit. And then also if we go to the face select, we're going to select this loop of faces right there, and we'll bring the faces down so they're just touching each other like that. And then we're going to shade the object smooth, and then also we will add the weight to normal modifier. So there we go, there's that little piece which is going to be in the center, so we'll bring it down. We can scale it down a little bit, and this is going to be in between the two seats, the two front seats. And we just want to make sure we have enough space for a seat over here and a seat over there. And if we go into edit mode, let's go to wireframe. We're going to box select the bottom and just bring the bottom down and make sure the bottom is just touching the floor. So now let's model the front seats. So what I'm going to do actually is select this object here and this object here, and we need to move these into the Cybertruck collection. So now what we're going to do is hide the steering wheels, the hubcaps, the wheels on the Cybertruck, and we also want to hide the main references. So we're going to add a new group of references. So we'll add a new collection, and I'm going to make this collection blue because again, that's the references, just to keep things nicely organized. And I'm going to double click on this to rename it, and I'm going to rename this to front seats. So let's center the 3D cursor. We're going to go to front view, and from our file browser, using the free download of the reference images, we're going to drop in this front seat here. And it'll hit Alt G to clear the location. Let's go to side view. Let's also bring this forward, and then we'll drop in the side reference and hit Alt G. Let's also go to top view, and then we can drag in the top reference and hit Alt G. So now let's just block this out. So let's bring this down here, or actually bring this up because it's the top reference. So we'll go to the add menu and we're going to add a cube. In edit mode, I'm going to scale it up a little bit, and we're just going to start to fit it to the chair. And I just want to make sure that all the references are correct. So we'll scale this down and bring it down here. Let's go to side view, and I can kind of rotate this over like that. Rotate this over. So this isn't going to be the final object. We're just using this as a block out. So you can see on front view and side view, that looks good. And then on top view, that looks pretty good as well. So let's select the entire object and we'll duplicate it and rotate it. And we're going to stick it right there. So again, we're just making a very basic block out just to make sure all the references align up. So we have that piece there, and it looks like that pretty much aligns with the front. If we select these, we can scale them in, add another loop cut here and bring that out. And then if we go up to the top here, looks like that aligns up too. So the one thing that I want to do though is take the top reference and maybe drag it back a little bit, because it looks like that wasn't quite fitting, but that looks a bit better now. So drag that back there. So now that we've set the reference images where we want, you can rename the references if you want to. So I'm just going to rename these to seat front, seat side, and seat top. And then this base object here, we can just delete that because we don't need it, or we could actually just move it into the backup collection. So now what we can do is click on these little arrow icons here next to these reference images, and that way we're not going to be able to select them. So now let's add a new collection. We'll click on new, and we're going to rename this to seats. And we'll just drag the seats right up there. So let's center the 3D cursor, and we're going to start to model the seats. So we'll add a cube. In edit mode, I'll scale the cube way down. Actually, we'll make it a bit bigger because we're going to start to model this piece here in the center. And then we'll add a loop cut. We'll delete half of the cube. And just like all the other objects, we're going to add a mirror modifier. Let's go to side view. We'll go back to object mode and move this over. And then on front view, we're just going to start to model it from front view, and then later we will adjust the size back and forth. So we're going to drag these vertices down here. We actually need to turn on clipping first so it merges with the mirror. And we're going to drag these right down there. We'll add a loop cut in the center and drag the loop out just a little bit. And then let's box select the top vertices here and duplicate it. And then we'll extrude this up, bring it out. And then we're going to extrude it up and then bring it back like that. So we're just modeling it and fitting those two pieces. Now let's model this cushion piece. So we'll select these faces, duplicate it and move it down, bring it up, and then we'll just extrude that piece up there. Then we're going to select this loop here and we're going to duplicate it and we're going to extrude that over. And then we'll add 2 loop cuts right in the center and bring these up. So right now we're basically modeling it as if it were like 2D, but we are going to make it 3D. But let's just start by blocking in all the main pieces. We'll box select these vertices here and duplicate it. And we need to turn off clipping so we can unattach it from the mirror and then turn back on clipping. Now let's just stick this right here. And then if we select this entire piece, we're going to extrude it, scale it down, and extrude again, start to rotate it. We're just going to extrude this and rotate it and scale it and just have it go all the way around here. All right, scale it up a little bit and extrude it all the way down. And then we have a piece like right in here in the middle. So let's go to wireframe. We're just going to box select some vertices here. Let's see, let's just find one like this down here at the very end. So we're going to box select these 2 vertices. So why we're doing that is because by selecting these vertices in wireframe, it's going to select the entire face. So let's go to wireframe, we'll duplicate this, scale it way down, and we actually need to turn off clipping again and drag it outside of the mirror and then turn clipping back on. So we'll scale it down and we'll just stick it right in there. And then we can extrude it up and bring it out like that. Bring this over and then select these top pieces again and extrude it, make it a bit longer, and then extrude again and extrude again. I'm just gonna have it go all the way up and then we'll start to scale it down. So scale that down there and scale that down there. And then this loop here, let's just drag it over like that. All right, so now you can kind of see what we're creating. Of course, the size and everything is really messed up, so we're going to fix that, but we're just kind of blocking in the main basic shapes. Let's do the top shape. So we'll go to wireframe. We're going to just box select these loops here and we'll duplicate it. And then we're going to extrude it way up, bring it in. And then if we box select this side and zoom in here and box select this side, we're going to extrude this out and rotate it and scale it down. All right, and just stick that right there. So now you can see we have pretty much the entire seat. This bottom piece we can do later. Now if we go to side view, you can see it's completely messed up. So let's go to wireframe. We're going to box select this entire side and we'll scale it on the Y by 0. And then we'll box select this entire side and scale it on the Y by 0. So now we'll select everything and we'll start to rotate it over a little bit and drag it back here. And then we can just start to rotate this and we'll scale this piece in on the Y-axis. We can also box select a lot of these pieces here. And we can kind of rotate it and move it in like that. Now what we can also do is hit the O key to turn on proportional editing. So hit the O key or click here and we can box select some of these and kind of drag them out a bit. And drag these out a little bit like that so that it's starting to curve around. And also if we select everything, we need to recalculate the normals. So hit Shift N to recalculate the normals. Now you can't really tell from the side reference, and that's because this piece on the side comes out more, but this piece I want to come out more, and then this I want to have more flat. So let's go to the edge select. We can select this edge and let's turn off proportional editing. And we're going to bring this edge back. And we'll select these edges and bring these edges back and bring that edge back. So it's a little bit farther back. And then what we want to do is select these edges. So we'll select all of these edges and we'll bring these edges way back too. We can also maybe scale them on the Y. And then we can also go to the vertex select and we'll drag these vertices back and we're going to align these vertices with that other piece. So drag it back like that. You can also double tap G to edge slide it back. So double tap G. So you can see this part here where kind of you're going to rest your back, that's more flat. Then right here it kind of goes forward a bit. And then this part here on the side is farther forward. Let's also go to the face select this face, and we'll scale this down to flatten it. Now if we go to side view, we can kind of see that these pieces pop out. So let's go to the face select and we'll select these faces. And we're going to extrude these faces out. Now you can see it's way too high up. So let's hit L to select the linked vertices and we'll move it over. We'll go to wireframe. We're going to box select the top here or the front and move it in We'll rotate this over, scale it up on the z-axis, and just fit it to that piece. Maybe actually drag this back, and then extrude it forward, scale it down. All right, and then extrude it forward and scale it down. And just select all the little bits here. So like the bottom, make sure that aligns with the reference up here as well. All right, and then make sure this aligns with the reference and this as well. Let's rotate this, move that in. And then here on the back, we need to select the back here. So we're just gonna select all these back vertices and we'll rotate them, move them in. All right, we can select these and kind of move them out just a little bit. And then this piece here, let's go to the face select this face, we'll go to side view. And for this face here, we're gonna hit the L key to select this entire piece. And this piece I'm gonna move down and we're gonna make it this bottom piece here. So we'll select these vertices and drag them back. These vertices, drag them back like that. And these two vertices, I'm gonna scale down so they're flat. So let's actually scale it along the y-axis so they're flat, and then scale along the z-axis like that. So we have just that little back piece there. And then if we go to the face select, we'll select this face and we'll drag this face out. And then we're going to have to make a new object for the cushion. Let's go here to front view and go into wireframe. You can see there's where the cushion is going to be. So we'll select these faces and maybe bring them down a little bit. Now I'm actually going to bring these way down just like this because the cushion is kind of covering these objects. So let's bring this down here. We'll select this face here and bring this down. Then if we go to the edge select, we will go to wireframe and we'll select this edge and bring the edge back. So bring it over there, bring this over here. All right, and then we will select this edge and bring it back as well, and select this edge and bring it back as well. All right, so now I want to create that bottom cushion. So we'll go to the face select, we'll select this face and we'll duplicate it. And let's go to top view and we'll bring this cushion over. And you can see for this, there's actually two cushion pieces. So let's use the trackball rotation to flatten that. And then we're going to extrude it back all the way to the very end there. And also on the top here, we can kind of see some of the objects are misaligned a little bit. So if I select these vertices here, these loops, let's rotate that over and move this over and kind of start to scale it down a little bit. So it gets a little bit more thin as it comes into the center. We can also select these vertices and just move them and kind of rotate them so it kind of tapers into the center. So as it goes closer to the end of the chair, it kind of moves inward. And then right here on the very front, if we select the front cushion, I want to drag this back and then I want to extrude it and bring it in a bit and then extrude it and bring it in a little bit. So it starts to round over as it gets to the very middle. So we'll select the entire cushion. Let's go to front view and we're going to bring it down. And then if we go to side view, let's go to wireframe. We're going to scale it down a little bit and then we're going to rotate it and stick it right there. So rotate it up because the seat is going to start to come up slightly. So when you sit down on it, you're going to kind of slightly slide backwards. And then I want to deselect the bottom vertices and we'll bring this up so it's a little bit bigger, so it's taller. We can also kind of bring this down so it kind of rotates around with the cushion. All right, so that's looking pretty good. If we select everything, we will recalculate the normals. So the seat is really coming together, but we do want to make that last cushion. So we'll go to the face select. We'll select this face here. We'll go to top view and we will duplicate the face slightly and then we will extrude this face out like that. And then we just want to make sure the face goes down slightly and let's bring this back in there. All right, so now we have those two little cushions there on the bottom. Let's go up here to the top and I do want to do a little bit of modeling to the top here. So if I go to the edge select, we'll select this edge and double tap G to edge slide it in. Now let's go to side view and you can see the cushion or the kind of headrest kind of pops out. So let's add a loop cut right here and then we'll add another loop cut down here. And if we go to the vertex select, we'll select these vertices and pull it out and pull these back and just fit it to the headrest. And these vertices, pull it forward. Now I do want to kind of make more of like a triangle shape here. So if I select these vertices, we'll edge slide them back and kind of rotate them. So it's more of like a triangle. And then also right down here, I want to add another loop cut here to make a little bit of lumbar support. So I'm going to bring this out a little bit so it comes out. Maybe drag this back just so that it kind of pops forward a little bit before going back. Also, another thing I noticed is that this face here, on the very back, I want to bring it in a little bit. And then this face here, let's actually go to the edge select. We'll drag this edge in a little bit. All right, so the chair is pretty much done. So we can add some modifiers now. So I'm going to add the bevel modifier to give the entire thing a bevel. And what I want to do is make the amount pretty small. So let's make this a bit smaller and we can shade the object smooth. So you can see there's adding the bevel, kind of bevels the edges. And on the segments here, I'll just turn that up to a 2. Now you can see some of these spots I don't want to bevel here. I also don't want to bevel along here. So what I'm going to do to fix this is separate some of these into their own object. Because we could try adjusting the bevel angle here, but that's just really too hard to use because let's say, I turn the angle way up because I don't want there to be a bevel here, but then there's also not a bevel in some other areas where we might want it. You can see there's also an issue right there. So what I'm going to do is keep the angle at the default of 30, but then I'm going to go into edit mode and I'm going to use the L key to just select all the bottom pieces and I'm going to separate them. Let's actually select this one too, and I'm going to separate them into their own object. And then also for the very top here, we're going to select this piece, the headrest, and we're going to separate it into its own object. So let's just start with the middle object here. So for this object, it's pretty good, except I don't really want to have a bevel here. So what we can do is we can just change the angle. So if I turn the angle up, you can see it's eventually going to get rid of that bevel right there. So now what I'm going to do is hit Control 1 to add a subdivision surface with 1 level. So basically we're first beveling it so it's pretty sharp along the edges, but then we're adding the subsurf modifier which is going to smooth it out even more. And on the subdivision, I'll just keep the viewport levels and render levels at 1. Let's now select the top piece, so the headrest. And for this one, I'm going to make the bevel a lot bigger. So let's turn this amount up so the bevel's bigger, so it's a bit more smooth. Now, for some reason, it looks like there were some doubled vertices here. So if we select everything, we're going to merge by distance. And you can see it got rid of those vertices there. So let's just turn the amount up. So it is going to have a bevel, but the bevel's going to be a lot bigger, so it looks a bit more smooth. And then we'll also hit Control 1 to add a subdivision surface with 1 level, so that that part is nice and smooth, and maybe in edit mode we could bring it down slightly so it kind of connects to that piece better. Alright, so now we'll select the very bottom object, and for this one I'm going to change the bevel angle. So let's turn the bevel angle up so it doesn't add as many bevels, because I don't want too many bevels. So what I'm going to do is turn the angle to a 65 here, but then let's add some loop cuts. So we're going to add a loop cut right there. Let's also add 2 loop cuts right there. And we can also select this loop of vertices and we'll just bevel it a bit. And we'll just add just a few cuts to the bevel like that. And then we'll also hit Control 1 to add a subdivision surface with 1 level and just shade it smooth. So you can see I do want a bevel right here, because I do want that to be a bit more sharp, but then right here I don't want a bevel. So that's looking pretty good. So only the very sharp edges, the very sharpest edges will have a bevel. And it looks like right in here there's a little bit of a gap. So if I just select the other object and go into edit mode, let's go to wireframe. We're just going to box select this here, and we'll just bring it down like that so it's connecting. That's a little bit better. And then right back here, if we just go to the face select this face, let's maybe rotate the face and bring it up a little bit, so it's not overlapping that other object. Also, if we go to the edge select, we can select this little corner edge and we'll edge slide it. We can edge slide it over and then just add a loop cut right there, and we can bring this forward a little bit like that. So now you can see it kind of curves over a bit. That's looking better. And then also right here, you can see I want to make this curve over as well. So let's go to a wireframe. I can select that edge and we'll drag the edge back. And then we can also select this edge and drag this edge out a bit and maybe flatten it a little bit like that. Now another thing is that you can kind of see through it. You can kind of see through the cushions, and I don't want to be able to see through the cushions. So what you can do is just hit L to select an entire piece, and you can bring it in or scale it up just a little bit. So we'll deselect everything, then hit L to select that piece and scale it up just a little bit. So we're making all the cushions just a little bit thicker so you can't see through them. So select that piece, maybe scale it up a bit on the x-axis and the y-axis, just so that the cushions are slightly thicker. So now what I want to do is model a little box on the bottom. So I'm just going to go into edit mode of this object, and I'll go to the face select and select this face, and we'll duplicate it and move it down. And I can separate it into its own object, and we'll select the new object. And in edit mode, we're going to go to side view. We're going to go to the vertex select. We'll select the vertices and bring it over like that. Then select these vertices and bring it up. And then if we select everything, we're going to extrude everything down, and we'll scale everything on the Z axis. Now for this little box shape object, we are going to delete the subdivision, and on the bevel, let's maybe turn the segments up to a 3 and maybe just drag the amount up a little bit. And then we can add the weighted normal modifier. So now we're going to select all of the seats, and then lastly, we're going to select the bottom one, and we'll parent it and we're going to use object keep transform. So this object will move the other objects. And let's now just open up the outliner, and we're going to unhide the steering wheel, the hubcaps, the wheels, and the Cybertruck. And let's hide the front seat references. So we want to select this piece here, and we want to scale it down, and we're going to stick it inside the truck. So we'll go to wireframe, we'll move it over here. Let's just scale that down and stick it right in there, make it a little bit smaller. And then if we go to top view and go to wireframe, let's just bring it over here and stick it right where the steering wheel is. Now let's select the windows, and we're going to hide the windows again, just so that we can kind of see through the Cybertruck. One thing that I actually might do, because I've kind of hidden the windows a lot, if I just select all the windows, we can move them into a new collection, and I can just call this windows and click on create. So now we have a new windows collection. I'll drag it up here so we can just hide and unhide that collection. That makes it easy just to hide the windows. So now here for this piece, I want to make it a bit bigger, so we'll scale it up just so it's a bit bigger. Maybe bring it down a little bit because there is a little bit of extra space there. I think maybe this piece, we can make it a little bit bigger as well. And then let's add the mirror modifier to the seat so it's over on the other side. So what I'm going to do is just hide the door for now, hide the door pieces, and we're going to select all of these pieces. And then lastly, we're going to select the one on the bottom. So let's go to the modifiers, and we are going to add a mirror modifier. Now on the mirror object, if we scroll down here, because the origin point is in the center, here on the very bottom mirror, we want to click on the eyedropper, and we're going to choose the empty object. So choose that empty, and now you can see it's going to mirror over on this side. So now because we have all of those C objects selected, we'll click on the drop down and we'll click on copy to selected. So now you can see all the objects are also mirrored over to the other side. But then if we want to, we can select this piece and we can scale it and move it around, and it's still going to move around the other objects. So we'll select the cup holder and let's scale it up a bit bigger, and then maybe bring it down a little bit so it pretty much fills the extra space there. Maybe bring it back a little bit. And then in edit mode, if we go to the face select, we'll select the bottom faces and move it up because it's a little bit too big now. All right, just like that. So we have the seats and the cup holders. I do think I want to make the cup holders a little bit smaller and the seats just a little bit bigger. We could also maybe just move the seats in just a little bit. All right, so let's unhide everything now and just take a look at that. That's looking pretty good. So we're now going to be creating the back seats. So to create the back seats, I'm going to select the front seats and we're going to duplicate them. So we'll select all of these 4 pieces and we'll duplicate it and we're going to move it over. Now let's just stick it at the very end of the car. All right, and now let's hit / to go into local view. So I'm now going to go to front view and we're going to be adding in some reference images for the back seats. So let's drag and drop in the reference images from the reference pack, and I'll hit Alt-G to clear the location, and then we're just going to scale them down. Let's go into wireframe, bring it up here, scale it down, and just stick it to fit where the seats are. And don't worry about how far away it is. You can see this is a little bit farther away. We're just going to focus on the size of it, and then we will just move the seats a bit farther away if we need to. So just like that. All right. So let's now go to side view, and what we're also going to do is open up the outliner, and we're going to hit M to move. We're going to go new collection. We're going to go back seats reference and click on create. And so now we have another collection here for the back seats reference, and we will right click and add a blue color. So now here on side view, we're going to add in the other back seat reference here on the side. Alt-G to clear the location, we'll scale it way down and just fit it into place. And then we'll go to top view, let's move this over to the side, and we'll drag in the top reference, clear the scale, we'll scale it down, and just stick it into place where the seats are. Let's go to front view now, and we're going to select all the objects. So just shift select the 4 objects, and I'll go into edit mode and select everything, and I want to pull it over, but the problem with this is that in edit mode there's a mirror modifier, so actually back in object mode we're just going to move it back, and that's going to use the second mirror because we have that mirror object. And we'll just stick that right on top of the seat. So now we're going to select this main object here. Let's go to the modifiers, and on the first mirror modifier, we're going to apply that. So if we apply it, now you can see it's all geometry. So now we're going to extrude this out and connect it to the other side. So let's go to the face select, and I'm going to select all of these faces on this side going all the way up right there. All right, let's go to front view again. So all of those faces, and we're going to extrude them over, and let's extrude them all the way till they go past the mirror. So let's turn on clipping on the bottom mirror here, and then we can drag it back, and then we can just delete the faces inside there. So now you can see that that car seat there is merged together. We can also go back into edit mode and add a loop cut, and just add a loop cut right there to kind of sharpen that up. We're now going to select the seat piece here, and we're going to duplicate it and move it in. And then let's delete the mirror modifier. So just delete that so there's half of it, and then we're going to move it in. And on the bottom mirror, let's turn on clipping. Let's actually drag this up using these little dots here, drag it up to the top so that the mirror is first, and then we'll drag it in here and make sure clipping is turned on. Now I don't actually want this little piece here, so we'll use L to select this piece and delete the faces. And then if I select everything, let's just drag it out a bit bigger. Now you can see we also have this piece here, so let's just bring that up there like that. Deselect everything, and then we'll just select the linked vertices to select those pieces, and we're going to make it a bit bigger and just fit that right there. Now right here and over here, you can see it's kind of caving over to the side, and I don't really like that. So on this mirror, we are going to apply it. So now if we go into edit mode, you can see it's all geometry. And let's go to the face select, and we're going to select these faces right there. We'll delete the faces. We'll select these faces and delete the faces, and also that face. So now we'll select this entire loop here, and we're going to scale the loop down to kind of flatten it. So we'll scale it on the y-axis. Let's bring it more into the center, and then we will extrude it out, start to scale it down, extrude it and scale it. All right, and then we will select these faces there, or those vertices, fill a face, select these, fill a face there, and fill a face there. Maybe add another loop cut in the center like that. Maybe we'll select these and bring them down so it's a bit more flat. That looks a little bit better. Also right here, we'll select these. Let's actually just select the 4 vertices on the top, and we'll maybe scale it down and bring it down a little bit. We'll select these 4, scale it down on the z-axis and bring it down a little bit. And then we will select these 4, scale it down and bring it down a little bit so it's a bit more flat. Now you can see on this object there's a little bit of a gap here, so we'll go into edit mode, and I'm going to select that loop and that loop, and we'll just bring it down just like that. Bring it down so that there isn't a big gap there. All right, and then I want to add a few details right here. So we'll add a loop cut right here, and we'll drag the loop over, and then we can drag the loop back, although we need to turn off the mirror clipping. So turn off the mirror clipping, drag it back, and then turn it back on. And so now that we dragged it over to this side and brought it back, you can see it's really straight. So we'll go to front view, we'll go to wireframe, and we're just going to compare that to the reference. So stick it there, and then we'll add a bevel. Let's add a small bevel with just one cut and just stick the bevel right there. So now we're going to add another loop right here. So we'll add a loop cut. Let's see, drop the loop cut there, and we're going to drag it down. Let's go back to solid view. Now let's go back to solid view, and I'm going to add another loop cut right there. So add a loop there. We'll go to wireframe and just edge slide this up like that. Maybe select this one and edge slide this up as well so there's a bit more space. And then if we select this loop, we're also going to give this a bevel as well. All right, let's do that for the bottom. So go to wireframe. Actually, it might be easier to do this in solid view. So we just want to see where that is. So maybe select this. We can just edge slide that up. We could also just use this one instead. So instead of making a new one, we could just use this one. So in wireframe, we can just give this a small bevel. Now I want to add another loop cut. So we're going to add another loop cut vertically, and we're just going to drag this loop cut over here. Then we'll add another loop cut vertically inside there. And then up here on the top, we're going to add another loop cut right there. Now why I'm doing that is so we can select these vertices, and let's zoom into it. And we're going to drag these vertices over, and we'll edge slide this over, edge slide this down, and then we're just going to drag this over. So we're making it basically so it's curving around. All right, let's do the same thing down here. So we'll navigate to the bottom, and we're going to drag this into the center. We're going to edge slide this back, edge slide this back, and then drag this into the center. Just like that, so it's kind of curving around. Now before we inset those faces, what I also want to do is add one more loop cut right there, because if we go to front view, you can see there's another one with the references there. So we can actually just use this loop here. So we'll select this loop, we're going to edge slide it up, and then we're going to add a bevel to it. So now we'll go to the face select, and we're going to select these faces here and these faces, and just shift select all of these faces around here, and then select all the faces going down and then around like that. All right, so now what we're going to do is go to the side here, and we're going to extrude them back in just a little bit like that. All right, so now let's click on this button here to preview the subsurf modifier, and there we go, we have a bit of details. Now I want to do a similar thing, but it's going to be a little cut right here. So let's go back to solid view, let's add a loop cut right here, and we'll drag the loop cut over, and then let's just scale it, and we're going to scale it on the x-axis by 0 to kind of flatten it. Let's drag it over and we'll just stick it right there. And then we're going to add a bevel to it, just a small bevel like that. And then we're going to extrude it and then use Alt S to scale along the normals and just kind of bring that in there. All right, so we have a little inset there. Now I do also want to add a headrest there. So we can just select one of these headrest objects and we're going to duplicate it. Let's move it into the center and we want to delete the first mirror. And then for the second mirror, we want to drag the second mirror up to the top and we will turn on the clipping button. So I'll go into edit mode and I'll bring it in like that so that it's touching the other mirror. Now I want to make this one a little bit different shaped, so we're going to scale it down the Z-axis and bring it out a little bit. And then in object mode, we'll scale the entire thing down a bit. And back in edit mode, we need to bring it together and then bring it back so it merges with the mirror. So let's scale it down, bring it in, bring it forward and just kind of stick it right there. And then we'll go to the face select. We're going to select these faces and we're going to scale the faces on the X-axis to kind of flatten them a bit. Scale this down. And then we could also turn the bevel amount down just a little bit so it's a little bit more sharp. We can also select this loop here and just add a small bevel to it, just like that. So there we go. Maybe this could be even a little bit smaller and scale the entire thing up a little bit. We now have that other little headrest. Now for the bottom object, we're just going to merge this together. So in edit mode, you can see in edit mode, we have two mirrors. So let's click on the drop down and apply the first mirror. And then we'll go into edit mode. We'll go to the face select. We'll select this face and move it into the mirror. And then we can turn on the clipping button and then drag it back here. And then we're just going to delete the faces. And then also we should put this mirror above the bevel and weight to normal so it mirrors it first. So I just have one big piece there for the bottom seats. And there is a tiny little bit of an issue here. You can kind of see the shading looks a little bit weird there. So if I go into edit mode, you can see some of these loops are really close. So if we just go to the vertex select, we'll select the vertices there. We'll deselect this one here, but the other ones, we're gonna just edge slide that down and then we'll select these ones, but then we'll deselect the ones in the middle. So just select those ones and then edge slide that up just so that they're farther away so it looks a bit more smooth. So you can now just hit the / and that's going to go out of local view. And I think maybe I want to select all of the seat objects and move them forward a little bit because they look a little bit too far back. So I'll move them forward, maybe bring them down slightly as well and bring them a little bit more forward. So now let's unhide the windows here just to see the windows, and we're also going to hide the back seat references. We'll just hit Control S to save, and that'll be it for this part of the tutorial series. So thank you so much for watching. And so in the final part, in part 6, we're going to be doing all the lighting and the materials and the rendering. And these free videos are made possible thanks to my Gumroad customers and Patreon supporters. So if you'd like to help support the channel as well as get access to lots of Blender content, that'll have links in the description to my Gumroad and Patreon. And thank you everyone so much for your support. So when the final part is released, it'll be right up there on the end screen, and I'll also have the link in the video description. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the final part.